I relate to Dave Ramsey because he always says, I met God on the way up and got to know him on the way down when his life was crashing down around him. I did all the right quote-unquote Catholic things and then ended up getting divorced. Hugely tumultuous time and thinking, oh man, you know, why is this happening to me? Just given my past history helped me understand that the Lord lives in the mess. Like, sure, there's very clear parameters to the life of virtue, but there's also just a really messy part of life that doesn't have clear answers. I strive for what I call an aggressively normal Catholicism. In case anybody out there is wondering how sold out I am for papal history, all of my boys are named for popes. Maybe this is terrible to say, but I love how quiet the first year has been, aside from the excitement of having an American pope. Yeah. There's just like not a lot of drama. I just had an opportunity to chat with a married couple in Minnesota who have known him for almost 50 years. They said, man, Bob, you're so good at this. I bet you're going to be the first American pope someday. I'm like, prophecy, 4.5 decades ago.
Well, hello, Matt from Popecast. Oh my goodness, I think I'm so excited because I can see your face, and you don't put your face on any of the internet that I'm on. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you have like a whole thread of just you, and I've missed it.
Mysterious. It's very mysterious. No, it's funny you say that because until I think it was last year, I've had the YouTube channel for a really long time, but I finally, maybe last year, started publishing the episodes on YouTube. So unless you looked for my name, yeah, you're right. The Popecast Instagram and Twitter don't have my actual face on them very often. But
no, yeah, and you don't look like the Pope. So here you are.
Yeah.
You look nothing like Leo.
Yes. Yeah. Thankfully. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, Bob from Chicago, he's a great guy. So I think it's a compliment. He's a nice looking man.
Yeah.
You look good. You look like, we'll say you're a younger Leo. How about that?
Yeah, maybe. Did he?
Okay.
He had the epic sideburns at one point. I don't know if he ever had.
Did he?
Facial hair.
Yeah, a whole full beard.
The Blues Brothers picture of him back in the 80s.
Oh, that's fantastic. I need to see it. Well, you would know, you're the Popecast. So what is the Popecast? Is it just a social media place? Is it a podcast? Is it a YouTube channel? What is it? Tell me as if I don't know.
Yeah, well, maybe this is a good. I don't know if it's an indictment on how I presented it initially or something, but it's a good time to clear the air. So it started as a podcast back in 2018, basically as out of kind of a desire to share that the problems with the world are nothing new, because it seems like all these people were freaking out about the world's going to end and our leaders are terrible or whatever. And I had known papal history for quite a while. I wrote a daily email series at my prior job a couple of years before that, and having read from Peter to Francis about the whole history of the papacy, I'm thinking this happens every 50 to 100 years. What's going on in the world today is nothing new. Far from it, the furthest thing from it. So knowing the stories of the popes helped kind of calm. I'm not, I guess, an anxious person by nature anyways, but it kind of helped calm my nerves. But wondering, is the world going to end tomorrow, or is the church going to crash and burn into the ground? Right. All these things. So that was kind of where it started. So it's a podcast, but then it's the papal history, papal tradition is such a beautiful thing. And so it's, I think, coming back into vogue in society. Obviously, lots of conversions happening and people coming back to appreciate the beauty of Catholicism and Christian history and all that sort of thing. But it was just kind of a natural outgrowth of it to grow an Instagram page and just basically share old pictures, old videos of popes from history and the regalia and the tradition, all that sort of thing. So my Instagram page grew larger, ironically, than the podcast did, the listenership specifically. But it started as a podcast, but it's multi-layered, I suppose, if you want to say that.
It is. Is the podcast still around? Are you still producing?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe this was, it had kind of a little hiatus, like mid 2022 until honestly, until Pope Francis died. It was kind of a good shot in the arm for me to revive it. It was just, some life circumstances, job changes, all that sort of thing. Became self-employed on purpose, but the all-consuming nature of owning your own business and growing that and all that sort of thing, unfortunately made the Popecast take a backseat. Still was posting on Instagram and things, but the podcast is definitely still around. Started to incorporate more interviews with people. So, for example, I've become friends with this priest in the Diocese of Duluth, who's not Father Mike Schmitz. There are
there's other priests.
Yes, yeah, priest in the Diocese of Duluth who happens to have the largest papal memorabilia, papal artifacts collection outside of Rome, anywhere in the world. That is just a personal collection of his. It's
what?
Huge.
How do you do that? That's amazing.
Yeah. I think he's in his mid-50s, late 50s maybe now, but he started when he was 18. And just as he, would save up money here and there, he started buying all these random papal artifacts, ranging from Pius X's straight razor to a 900-year-old papal document on parchment that he had to pay a lot of money to get unrolled and not have completely fall apart. So started to incorporate more of those kind of guest interviews as well. But it's fascinating for me as a Pope nerd, but I think it's really fascinating for people to know what's not out there too.
I was thinking about you because I went to the Conclave, and that's kind of when you got on my radar because of my friend Marilys.
Oh yeah.
Extant on the Run, and she loves you. She's like, I don't know who this Popecast person is, but they are fabulous. Or, if there's 12 of them, whatever they are, like she just was raving about you. And so I started following, and I loved how positive that, but yet still real, Matt, that when you talk about the Pope or what you're posting about the Pope, it's not like just sunshines and rainbows, but it also isn't like this guy's the worst, or whatever. It's very like positive and real. Is that an intentional choice to shed certain light on the Pope?
Yeah, I would say probably yes and no. Yes, because I just try to take an honest look at the whatever Pope I'm covering or whatever period of history I'm looking at. I try not to have an agenda. We all have our own biases, obviously, whatever. But the intentional part is just taking it at face value and saying, okay, I'm not going to just be mad at this guy because I believe X, Y, or Z. I'm just going to let history take its course. So maybe that's like the amateur historian part of me. I would say the unintentional part of me is just given my past history, my journey of faith, all that sort of thing, which we can certainly get into if you want to, but it's helped me understand that the Lord lives in the mess. Like, sure, there's very clear parameters to the life of virtue, to being a Catholic, all that sort of thing, all of which I'm 100% a fan of. But there's also just a really messy part of life that doesn't have clear answers. And I think that's part of what I really love about papal history in particular, Christian history in particular, that the church has endured inexplicably, despite the mess, despite bad popes and good popes and all that sort of thing. So yeah, so I would say yes and no, which is why it doesn't, I don't know. I strive for what I call an aggressively normal Catholicism, personally, but then as far as how I portray that, I like making fun of people who wig out over dumb things.
Yeah.
And kind of miss the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Anyways, yeah. So I try to stay pretty upbeat because I'm a pretty upbeat guy. But I also try to stay honest and understand
very real.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. Yeah, I respect it. So okay, you mentioned your faith journey. What is your faith journey? Were you cradle Catholic, convert, revert? Where do you fall, or maybe a category I don't know about?
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in Western Montana. I'm mid 30s, 36, almost 37. So classic millennial Catholic upbringing. My mom was the parish youth minister, still is. My dad helped.
Your
cook
mom's
all the
a
nights
youth minister.
Yeah.
That's so cute.
So loves going to all the youth ministry conferences. Oh, totally. So yeah, she still is. My dad cooked all the Knights of Columbus breakfast and all that sort of thing. So like very quintessential,
very Catholic,
millennial Catholic upbringing. But as and we had great priests, not earth shattering, Father Mike wow types. But fine. was a good parish, solid upbringing, very stable. All that type of thing. When I got to college, I went to a Catholic college, diocesan college in Montana, Carroll College, go Saints. But it was it was a continuation of the comfort of the faith that I had. So I wasn't really super challenged in like hard questions and stuff. But then I spent 2 years in graduate school at Northern Arizona University, encountered focused missionaries there for the first time. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew or cared what Carroll College was because it was 1,000 miles away. And so that was really where I had what I call a conversion. It was kind of an awakening in the faith. I went to a Sikh conference in 2013. And just that was kind of the spark for both investigating the truths of the faith and kind of claiming them for my own, but then also this fascination with history as well. So just consuming for the next 2 or 3 years everything that I could, everything I could get my hands on. Was very zealous, as new converts tend to be. It was a lot of head and not a lot of heart, I guess you could say.
I love that. That is a great way to explain that. A lot of head, not a lot of heart. Yeah.
So then, and I relate to Dave Ramsey for this next part because he always says, I met God on the way up and got to know him on the way down when his life was crashing down around him. So around that time I got married. It was not a good situation. I actually really loved your episode with Edmund for this reason, because I did all the right quote unquote Catholic things and then ended up getting divorced. Did not have any kids, but it was still hugely tumultuous time. I'm thinking, oh man, why is this happening to me?
Sure.
To keep a very long story very short, got to know the Lord on the way down, so to speak. So I met him on the way up. That was where the heart really came in, where an appreciation for the mess of Christian life and a real challenge from God to fully surrender and not keep this little pocket hidden away from myself, all that sort of thing. So then out of that, just had, a kind of a second conversion, I suppose, if you want to call it that. A couple years later, I met my now wife and have been married for 8 years and got our fourth due, as I mentioned, any day now. So, that's kind of it in a nutshell, I suppose. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. So how long were you married in your first marriage, Matt?
I think from civilly, it was 2 years from marriage date to the date it was dissolved, but functionally about a year and a half. So it was very, very short.
Very short. Okay. And how did you find the annulment process? Like, how did you find, like, especially listening to Edmund's, our first episode of The Living Room, we discussed with Edmund Mitchell, his divorce and his annulment process. Did you, I don't know how, we don't talk a lot about it in the church. You know what I mean? Like nobody really, it's kind of like this hush hush, or I don't know. I don't know if it's taboo or if it's just people just don't talk about it because it's so painful to go through. Maybe they don't want to sit down and crack a cold one and say, let me tell you about my annulment.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, it's a great question. That could be a podcast on all its own. Honestly, I have nothing bad to say about that process. In fact, there's an article I wrote for the National Catholic Register that I still go back to every so often. And, every time I read it, I say, yeah, I still stand by that. It's a reason that I really love Pope Francis for all of his imperfections, for all the, legitimate reasons that people had to not prefer him. He, right around the time that I was petitioning to have my marriage declared null, he simplified the process. So normally I live in the Diocese of Spokane, so it's what's the technical name for it? It's under the Archdiocese of Seattle. I forget the word for it.
Sounds good.
At any rate, before sorry,
geography's hard. I don't know.
Yeah, the Archdiocese of Seattle is the Metropolitan See, whatever. Suburbicarian. Gosh, we can put it in the notes, or somebody can correct it. Put a little snippet at the bottom of the screen.
We're not that fancy in the living room.
Yeah. Anyways, you could just cut this whole section. So Pope Francis basically made a provision to not require a second process. So one of the things that people had always complained about, that I had heard about, is that it took so long that it would just, it was already a really fraught thing because you're having to go through this, basically a second court case with the diocese where maybe the two ex-spouses don't like each other, don't want to have all this contact or whatever. So you have to petition your diocese, and then your diocese would have to send it to the archdiocese and have to go through the whole process all over again. And then you'd have to wait for them to send it back. It was this whole rigmarole. So mercifully, right about the time that I was petitioning, Pope Francis had taken away the archdiocesan review process. So basically my diocese could be it. So I was able to petition them. Our tribunal could review it and get it back. So I think I had a pretty short case process. It was only about 6 months, I want to say, which from what I'd heard was very unusual. So I appreciated that. I also, I don't know, I had to run across a couple of articles I remember in those times as I was, praying through being divorced, being newly single, realizing, for example, I had never actually properly discerned whether I was called to marriage in the first place. Right. Turns out, obviously, I was, and the Lord made that very definitive. Yeah. But I realized that the annulment process, it gets a bad rap. I think it's a legitimate exercise of the church that Jesus established because he calls us to something specific. So I'd seen these sentiments from people who said, oh, the annulment process is bad because 90% of them get approved, or, it's just Catholic divorce, the things you'd hear. Right. And I couldn't disagree with those more, because if the Lord allowed for a church to make, legal distinctions, to give us clear rules to live by, and also calls each of us to something specific, whether that's the priesthood, religious life, or marriage, or the single life, or whatever, then if we make an error, as we do as humans, then there ought to be a process to litigate that, I suppose. So that's what I found. I didn't like the process, but I appreciated that it was there and that it was clear. So yeah, I guess, at the risk of rambling too long, that's... No.
Yeah, I want to ask you, what's the most beautiful thing that came out of your divorce and annulment?
I had never encountered St. Paul, who talks about the peace beyond all understanding in Scripture. Mm-hmm. So through my prior relationship and putative marriage, I think that's the technical name, because it wasn't actually a marriage. Okay,
true. Thank you. That's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, but so the prior relationship to now, it was just so tumultuous, and there wasn't the free, total, faithful, fruitful union on the day that we got married, as far as everybody saw. There wasn't a valid marriage that happened that day, and it was so clear. I still remember I sat in a Starbucks for like 3.5 hours, because it's basically like a deposition. The church gives you like 20 questions, says, how did you come together? How did you meet? Tell a story about your dating life, your engaged life, your married life. How did your friends react? When did it start to go wrong? All these sorts of things. I think I wrote like 6.5 pages, single spaced, typed 12-point font. Like, it was a ton. Yeah. And when I walked through that, it was like, it was that sigh. That actually was what it was. Like this, like feeling sorry for my ex-wife because of all that she had gone through prior to us getting together. Seeing so clearly laid bare where I was wrong, where I missed stuff. Mm-hmm. So not laying blame all on her or anything like that. And then having known my wife by that point, we were really good friends. My current wife, obviously, we were really good friends by that point, and already seeing in that friendship with her what was clearly missing before. Right. Namely, that it was really easy to communicate. We understood each other on just a basic level, and that living a life of faith with her in friendship at the time, and then later dating, engagement, married life, and still now, is just so peaceful, because life throws so much crap at you. Yeah. No matter what. It's automatically anyways. So it was just beautiful to be able to see and enter in and clearly hear the Lord saying, this is what I'm calling you to, and in the way that I'm calling you to it, where I just, plug my ears, la 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 la. I'm going to do whatever I want, whatever I feel like, in the prior case, and seeing it crash and burn. So yeah.
So finding peace and what that actually, like what peace actually feels like, and what it is as an experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
You would say, yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. So here you are going forward. You're married, about to have your 4th baby, and you're self-employed. What does that look like? So what does the Popecast do on the daily that we see or don't see? Is it faith related what you do, self-employment, or is it not faith related?
No, so that's kind of what was funny about that was I'm a remodeling. I have a small remodeling company, so we do anything from handyman punch list to we just remodeled an entire basement of a house for some people. So it's ancillary faith stuff. So I'll work for Catholics or not. I worked for this lady who fell away from the faith.
Okay.
And I'm putting caulk around the bottom of her toilet and replacing a light fixture, and all the while she's just grilling me with questions about what's most important to you, what's your what do you want your kids to be, how do you train them up in the faith, or whatever. That's not a normal occurrence, I wouldn't say, but it's just really interesting. So no, I mean, I work on people's houses, and it's beautiful. I love working with my hands and all that sort of thing. So the Popecast is kind of like a contractor by day, papal historian by night kind of thing, or whatever. But
I love that though. But that's so beautiful because, we're called to live our faith in our work. And so you working with human beings, which listen, I don't know if you've heard, we're getting further away from working with each other all the time. That's really cool that you do that. So being someone who's in both, which is fascinating, you have this digital life and you have this real life. What are you seeing like in the topography of humanity? How we're like, do you see us falling apart from not talking to each other? Do you think we're fine? We're talking to each other plenty. Do you see those two things at battle, or do you see them not as scary as sometimes we hear they are, since you have a foot in both?
That's a really good question. I do a lot of work for people who are like my parents and grandparents' age. And so I find that a lot of the online spats just don't factor in at all, whether they are aware of it or not. So that's encouraging to know that, okay, the things that people seem to be super obsessed with online, like probably aren't really that big a deal. The liturgy wars or whatever you want to, whatever it might be. People just have, their own joys. Like the people who I was working for, their grandkids were running around a bunch of the time that we're working. And so like they're occupied by those things, which are normal real life things, which is great. But then there's also, I'll be driving around and it seems like people are on edge, like cutting people off in traffic or whatever. That's like the other thing. It's like maybe similarly related to the digital world that we're all kind of on edge. So it's good when we actually talk to each other, have conversations, ask about life, aren't on our devices all the time, something like that. It's it's good to stay plugged in. It's good to learn about the things that the digital world affords us to learn about, for sure. But no, I don't think it's nearly as bad as the picture that's painted online, at least. Okay,
I love that. So do you see, so you don't really see a loneliness epidemic going on that, or do you, I guess that kind of could be a different question. Do you think being in digital and being in the everyday, do you see people as lonely on either side or on both sides, equally lonely?
Now that I do think that's a different question.
That is a different question.
I think that's a very real thing that just flies under the radar because a lot of times you don't know to look for it. So I said, I do a lot of work for people who skew older, a lot of widows in particular. There's a gal who's one of my favorite people. I tell my wife I need an extra hour allotted whenever I go to this lady's house to sit and chat, because she'll make me sit and drink a whole cup of coffee. She'll have cake a lot of times. But her husband has Alzheimer's. And so it's one of the biggest joys of my life to do the little bit of work that I do at her house, but then also to sit and chat with her because, her kids don't live in town, all that type of thing. And I can tell in some cases too, when I go to somebody's house and I might be the only person they see that day. They might talk to somebody on the phone or whatever, but they'll kind of, when you people are kind of extending the conversation, I try to kind of be a little attuned to that and not, if I have to be in a rush, that's one thing. But I try to, if I don't have to be in a rush, okay, can I stay 5-10 more minutes and chat with this little old lady who, is lovely and has a beautiful home and is showing me pictures of her kids and her grandkids and all these things. And, trying to keep the main thing.
I love that. So what's interesting is that you're kind of, you're, in a way, you're still a historian in your real life because you're kind of capturing the history of these people that maybe nobody's listening to. I don't know if you've thought of it that way before.
Sure.
But you're digital and a real historian.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. My grandma was big into genealogy. She died a few years ago. And I don't know if there was one or two of my cousins also have interest in it, but not very many people are interested in ancestry, 5 generations, 6 generations back. And so I've always obviously had a fascination with that. So yeah, I love hearing about that sort of thing too, because old people have really cool old things in their houses a lot of times. So to be able to ask about stuff like that and figure out another reason that Father Rich from Duluth, that we love chatting with each other is all the cool old stuff, that's important to care about. It might not be the most important thing, but to realize that we don't have a lot of like old tactile things. A lot of stuff is just plastic throwaway, which again has its place, I guess. But yeah, it's just neat. Yeah. I like that characterization. I never thought of that. Historian of real life. So
you're in both. So how are you teaching your children, or how will you teach them to appreciate history and the story of a person?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I think it's helpful to be around older generations. So my in-laws are all
intentionally
here. Yeah. My in-laws are all here, but we make a point whenever we go back home to see my family. Well, my grandpa's still alive. He's in his late 80s, going and like having reverence for old people who have a lot of old things, or important things to tell you about, old stories and things like that. The same with my wife's grandparents. But also, as you asked the question, I was reminded Father Rich just sent me a box of stuff that he was just trying to kind of cull from his collection. So I bought some stuff from him, and a lot of it was kind of knick-knacky type stuff. But there was a bandana, a big silk bandana made in Italy with a picture of the Swiss Guard on it. And so my oldest is Leo. In case anybody out there is wondering how sold out I am for papal history, all of my boys are named for popes. So my oldest is Leo, but he claimed that bandana immediately. Crazy. Oh, Daddy, can I take it? He was trying to find a place in his room to put it. And then the next one, Gregory, sees this little medallion that looks like a Medal of Honor, but it's like a little medallion, like a religious education award or something. But it had Pope Pius X on it. And so he wanted to wear it to school, to preschool today.
I love that.
So like encouraging the natural fascination with old things, I think, is another just as important thing.
The respect of it. Okay, so we know Leo and Gregory. Now I got to know the other pope names. What are the other?
So Nicholas is our third. So the least known, the Great. So Leo the Great, Gregory the Great. Everybody's already usually heard of them.
Yeah.
Saint Nicholas the Great is not Santa Saint Nicholas, but he was the pope in the end of the 800s, into the 9th century. So great defender of marriage. I forget exactly why he's the least known, but it was, the title of the Great just kind of was a natural outgrowth of the Pope's personality. So Nicholas the Great, and then the newest one will be John Paul for obvious reasons.
Oh,
so
sweet.
Yeah.
I love that. Do you have a favorite pope? I'm sure you get asked that a lot. I'm sure you get.
Yeah, I think John Paul II probably takes the cake, as is, I don't know if he's your favorite too, but it seems like a lot in our generation really love him. So it's John Paul and then like 10 who make up the next list. So is
Leo getting on that list, the new pope? What are you thinking about our new pope? Are you a fan?
Huge fan. I feel like so John Paul II's in one spot, and then Pope Leo is in like a category all his own because he's the current pope, and then there's
that's fair,
favorite popes of history. But no, I love how maybe this is terrible to say, but I love how quiet the first year has been. Aside from the excitement of having an American pope, there's just like not a lot of drama. Again, whatever. I love Pope Francis. I didn't love everything that he did.
Yeah,
I didn't love a lot of his. I didn't love all of his personal non-faith beliefs, but I loved him. I love that he
sure.
But there was a lot of drama. You just nobody can argue that there was a lot of drama with Pope Francis, and it just got a little exhausting, I think, by the end of it. But with Pope Leo, it seems like he's all the good things that Pope Francis was, and then has this kind of measured, listening, administrative ability that just wasn't Pope Francis's gift. It didn't seem like so. But then I just, love the simplicity of him and his kind of quiet goodness. I just had an opportunity to chat with a married couple in Minnesota, Lutherans, ironically, who have known him for almost 50 years.
Really?
And have still been in touch with him, even still, since he's been Pope. And they kind of just affirmed that he's just always been that guy. This kind of, you're just drawn to him for some reason. There's just this quiet goodness about him. He listens super well, is very faithful, but is not ostentatious about it. So for all those reasons, yeah, I love Pope Leo.
So he is exactly kind of what he seems. How do they know the Pope? Do you know that story? Do you know how they know him?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. So I don't know if it's still the case. I think it varies diocese to diocese, but at least back in the 80s, there was this course called Clinical Pastoral Education that was like a hospital chaplaincy course that was required for all Catholic seminarians and I guess Lutheran seminarians too. So they happened to be in the same cohort for 10 weeks in 1980, I think.
Oh my gosh.
46 years ago. So he was still Pope Leo was still a Augustinian in formation. I don't know if they call them seminarians or not. And then John was in formation to be a Lutheran pastor. And so they spent 10 weeks in Minneapolis or wherever it was and just got to be super good friends. So there's a picture of Pope Leo riding his brother's snowmobile with this, with giant snowmobile suit. And apparently he was like rip roaring around the hills because he loves to drive, is, apparently another little tidbit about him. But yeah, so then since then, I guess Bob.
They just stayed in touch.
They still call him Bob, by the way, which is hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
Because I guess they've known him as Bob for 45 years of the last 46. But they said he said, if we're going to be friends, we need to make a commitment. Like as an early 20s, 23-year-old Augustinian in formation, he said, okay, if we're going to be friends, we need to really be friends. Like we need to commit to this. And so they've lived that commitment out. So they've exchanged letters over the years and all that sort of thing. But yeah, spent just kind of 10 intense weeks together in this course and got to know each other really well and have been friends ever since.
Are they surprised that he's the Pope, or are they like, that's Bob?
So that was kind of a wild story that they told. And I didn't know this. I had met them previously before we talked. It was just last week. But I had met them previously and they had told me some of these stories. I hadn't heard though, that I think it was during that summer, he was maybe the only Catholic in their group of friends. They said, man, Bob, you're so good at this. I bet you're going to be the American Pope, the first American Pope someday. I'm like, prophecy 4.5 decades ago.
How do you stay Lutheran when you're like besties with the Catholic Pope? I'd be
I don't know.
You know what I mean? The pressure of that, or be like, well, I guess I got to become Catholic. I mean, Bob became the Pope, so we got to go to the other side. I don't know.
I don't know. They're happy. At least they say that they're glad to be Lutheran ambassadors for Pope Leo. So I don't know
That's
of any other
cute.
Lutheran ambassadors, but
I love
great.
that. But at least we have them. That's fantastic. What's the most interesting Pope fact that you've ever learned? Do you have like something that's just weird, off the chart, wild kind of a Pope fact?
There's a couple. The first one that comes to mind is Pope Leo X ushered in the Reformation, maybe in large part because he had a pet elephant. And Martin Luther was so mad that that there was such excess going on in Rome that Pope Leo would have the audacity to accept a gift from, I think, Persia maybe.
Yeah.
That he accepted this gift of a pet elephant and would ride it around. And he
Don't
was
they
so
have a
mad,
statue of that in Rome? They have a statue of this pet elephant.
They might have a statue. They in the Vatican museums in the Raphael rooms, I think, that Pope Leo commissioned. Leo X commissioned. Inlaid in one of the wooden doors is him riding the elephant. And so actually, I think until a few years ago, they didn't know if it was actually real, if the elephant actually had existed.
Yeah.
But then they were doing some excavations in the Vatican gardens or somewhere and found elephant bones.
Oh.
So he was actually real. So there's that crazy Pope story. But I think a crazier one, and the name of the Pope is escaping me. It was further back. I want to say like the 12 or 1300s. It's like high Middle Ages. This one Pope had such a proclivity to eat eels that he ate too much eel and died, or something. I'm pretty sure that's accurate, and I'll send it to you.
We say yes. We
the
validate
name
it.
of it, but
it's truth.
Yeah. he loved eel so much that his successor, when he commissioned his tomb, wrote on the epitaph basically, "This guy loved eel so much that he died."
How would you die from eel?
I don't know if they're, mercury poisoning or whatever it might have been.
Oh,
but,
right.
got,
okay, I didn't think that through. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, and they're electrocutionists. I don't
maybe, I don't know.
Electrocuted from eels? Is that just a fake thing? I don't know.
There has to be multiple species of eel.
Are there? I don't want to know any of them. I'm good. I'm eel free. I am not pro eel. Unless that has something to do with purgatory and getting to heaven, then yes, I love eel. They're my favorites. But if not, then I'm against it completely. Especially ever since, oh geez. Anyway, I won't even go into it. I was thinking of a movie. So, okay, let me ask you this. What is like a quote or a beautiful story from a pope that really inspires you, or like a mantra or something that you're like, oh, that's so cool that, this is around and you don't have to get it verbatim, but like some type of thought that is so beautiful that came from a pope of ours.
Oh man. That is
like,
a really
I'm thinking question. Like Pope John Paul II had a lot of great, and here's what's real, right? A lot of the past popes have been very quotable because we were here to write it down, or we have them on camera, or, we have books that they did. But I was just wondering if you ever came across maybe a better question would be like a very interesting pope that if he had been alive today, he would have been one that we would have quoted a lot. He would have been a guy that we would have thrown on TV. He was a really interesting speaker, or like St. Anthony of Padua, right? Like he was apparently this amazing speaker, and we would want to sit at his feet and listen to him. Is there a pope that you've learned about that you're like, oh, this guy was really interesting?
Yeah, I think Gregory the Great fits that bill pretty well. So he was
nice.
pope at the end of the 500s. I think he died in 604. I did an episode pretty early on and called it the Pope who founded Western civilization, because he kind of laid the groundwork. So the backstory about him was he was a native Roman from a noble family, but he was born when Rome was basically being sacked and burned multiple times throughout his childhood, let alone his adulthood. So Rome was just in shambles. The seat of the empire had gone to Constantinople, all these sorts of things. So he was this guy who, one, had this duty to care for Rome instilled in him by his parents. His dad died pretty early on, and then he was kind of a sickly kid and just wanted to kind of put all of the cares of the world behind him. And so he entered religious life. He founded a monastery, which you can still go to in Rome. So because he was in the Roman nobility, you can see the Circus Maximus from his house. It's
cool.
San Gregorio Alcelio, I think, is the name of the church in Rome. So it's built on his house that he had turned into his monastery. But the thread that ran all through his life was civic duty, so being a good citizen of the milieu that you were born into, whether you like it or not. And then also following what God asked of you, also whether you like it or not, because you know God so well that you know God's going to bring your ultimate happiness and ultimate goodness out of following that. So it's this really weird tension. I think it's reading. So I'll back up. There's a great biography about him where I learned all of this. That's relatively new. Ignatius publishes it on St. Gregory the Great, written by I think it's a woman, Sigrid Grabner. I think she's German. So it had to get translated in English, but it's quotes from him copiously. There's a ton of letters that still survive from him because he was such a great figure. And so much was saved. It was a Benedictine monk, so they probably, copied those down through the centuries. But you read stuff that he wrote, and you're thinking, he wrote this 1,500 years ago? This sounds like it was written yesterday for the people who are vain and selfish and care only about their own, victimhood or, all these sorts of things. It's crazy. I wish I could think of an example off the top of my head, but it's all throughout his life. But he followed what the Lord asked, even though he was sick all the time, even though he was, I think, pretty introverted, even though he just wanted to retreat into his monastery and just be by himself and pray all day, every day, he knew that the Lord was calling him. He was annoyed about it, but he knew that it was the Lord legitimately calling him to be the Pope. And sometimes that insistence from the Lord came in the form of the Roman populace who loved him so much, grabbing him bodily and taking him from his monastery to, I don't know if it would have been St. Peter's Basilica or the Lateran at that point, and then crowning him. They said, "No, you are coming. We need you. You have to be the Pope." And so it's like his first act, for example, was ending the bubonic plague. So the figure of St. Michael the Archangel on top of the Castel Sant'Angelo, right next to the Tiber. That statue obviously isn't 1,500 years old, but it comes from St. Gregory the Great leading a procession through Rome, getting to the Tiber, seeing the Castel Sant'Angelo, and seeing St. Michael on top of it, wiping a bloody sword and sheathing it, indicating that the plague was over. And he's leading this before he'd been installed or whatever, coronated as Pope. People were dropping dead literally on the procession. It's this interesting figure of a guy who spoke really well, preached really well, but what's the line from Chesterton? Each generation is converted by the saint who contradicts it most. So I feel like St. Gregory the Great fit that bill really well because civilization was crumbling around him. Right. And he wanted no part in it. He wanted to just go follow God in his monastery and sit and pray all day.
And just pray all day, and we made him Pope.
But and then we're quoting Chesterton and Gregory the Great, and then we're quoting Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. So
yes,
there's a lot of truth
I love
in that.
There you go. All right, fun question. You have 5 spots at your dinner table to fill them with 5 popes. Who are the 5 popes you would fill?
Oh man,
to eat mac and cheese. Because you've got little kids.
Yeah.
Chicken nuggets.
It's a staple. Yeah. My wife would make mac and cheese and bring it to soup and stations every Friday because the kids would never eat the soup. So that's what I think when I think of mac and cheese. We're fresh off Lent. Oh gosh, 5 seats. Let's see.
5 seats. You got 5 seats. You only pick 5 popes. Who are you bringing? And they have to be your favorite. They could be wacky. They could be whatever. But who would you want to have a meal with?
I feel like I have to put St. Peter there.
Oh, that's fair.
I identify a lot with St. Peter because he's just he loves the Lord so much, but he's such a meathead. Yeah, he made so many dumb choices. In the Gospels, but then it ended well. So I feel like St. Peter has to be there.
Yeah.
So John Paul II. Do I want to use up 2 seats? Because I love John Paul I also. We haven't talked about him yet. He's just really fascinating, super joyful guy. Who I think we can talk about this more if you want. But I think he knew that he was going to die. I think he knew he was only going to be Pope for a month.
Really?
Because he called himself John Paul I. Notice, Francis didn't say, "I'm Francis I." John Paul said, "I'm John Paul I."
Oh, interesting.
So I feel like I'd put him there.
Okay.
Let's see. Pius VII, he was put in prison by Napoleon for 10 years and then reigned for 10 years after and took care of Napoleon's family. And great figure on the road to sainthood.
Interesting.
Golly. This is so tough.
It is. Well, we've had a few.
St. Peter, John Paul I. I feel like we know John Paul II enough, So we'll say he'll come to
I don't want to break bread with him. He's fine.
John Paul II.
I got to meet him. Yeah. So I had my marriage blessed. Yeah. Sposio Novelli blessing with Pope John Paul II. So
how old was he? Still?
It was 3 years before he died. So I was married in 2000. This was in June of 2000. This was March of 2001. In fact, my daughter, her first name is Cana after the wedding feast of Cana, where Jesus performed his first miracle, and she's our miracle because we didn't know we could have more children. So we only have 2, and they're almost 8 years apart. And so that's where she gets her first name. Her second name is Caroline with a K, which we named her after Pope John Paul II. So, because his first name was Carroll.
Yeah,
I love her name. So, I mean, you can have, you know what? How about this? It's like when you say, who's your best friend, but you can't count Jesus. We'll say 5, but you can't count Pope John Paul II. He's going to be there anyway. We're going to, he's there. Yeah. Okay. So JP2's there.
And say, Yeah, he's gonna knock on the door.
He
after
lives
we're all
there. It's his house, and your wife is making the mac and cheese at JPT's. Okay, so he's already there. So you got JP1. Who else did you say?
St. Peter.
St. Peter.
Pius VII.
Pius VII. I'll never remember that.
Oh,
all right, you got 2 left. Just be fun. Who would be fun? Who was a funny guy? Yeah.
A
Who
funny
make
guy?
everybody laugh?
Ironically, Pope Saint Hilarious was not hilarious. He was just kind of really boring.
Oh, well, let's have that guy just so we can like throw rolls at him.
He might have been. He might have been funny. I don't know. Okay. Pope Saint Fabian. He was the 20th Pope. He was the one who famously got elected by a dove landing on his head in this gathering of the Roman citizenry.
Oh,
it was before Christianity was legal. So, because I think he got martyred. So it would have been like 250-ish. And the primitive conclave at the time, all the citizens, all the clergy came together in this big room. Nobody could decide. And then a dove flies in, lands on his head, and everybody said, he's the guy.
That's the guy.
Seriously, yeah. We'll never know this side of heaven how accurate the story is, but that story has been passed down century to century.
We say yes.
Yeah. So he'd be a good one.
Everything on this podcast is true.
Yes.
All of it. 100%. All real.
Yes. Accurate. We're just going to go with it.
Exactly.
Okay. One more seat.
One more seat.
I'm super fascinated. I'm not like a ultra Deus Vult, crusader. Yeah. Rah, rah kind of guy. I love the Crusades. I love the stories of them, the characters. But I'm not like the sycophant feels like a bad word for it, but I'm not like really sold out. But Urban II, I feel like would be a fun one to put in there and say, all right, let's chat about the Council of Claremont, 1095, sending crusaders to Jerusalem. Because this is, like ultra trad superhero now, but life being messy, I'm sure there was a super interesting story behind it as far as this. Because, okay, for context, I've had people ask me, oh, what do you think about Pope Leo saying God doesn't hear the prayers of people who pray for war or whatever? And I'm giving Pope Leo the benefit of the doubt 100%.
Right.
But then we have these characters, these popes who called crusades, sent soldiers to battle. And I'm just curious about if there was moral tension within them to say, okay, well, have we waited long enough? Muslim conquest in the Holy Land, the whole thing. Yeah. Sending Christians to battle to reconquer that. What went into the decision to call that? I'm just super fascinated by that.
Okay, that would be interesting. See, and I would have picked Pope Leo because then we could have had amazing pizza from Chicago, but that's not for a really good reason. Our time is already done, which is terrible because I love hearing all the things that you know in your brain. I just want to tap it and just siphon out all of the amazing knowledge that you have. But I always ask my guests, how can we pray for you? How can the people listening pray for you? What are some prayers that you need? Obviously, we'll be praying for your wife. Hopefully, by the time this comes out, she has had the baby. Most definitely, that will be true.
I don't know what the lag time is, but I hope it's like 5 minutes from now for her sake.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to sneeze and the baby's here.
Yes.
And the podcast. No. So we're already praying for the baby and your wife. So what is something else that how can we pray for you?
Yeah, thanks. I would just say going back to the people who I get to do work with, this epidemic of loneliness. So just the people that I encounter who could use extra prayers or, searching for the Lord, searching for where they're supposed to go in life, maybe life transitions. So praying for the people who I get to do work for. Yeah.
I think
love
that would be
that.
Great.
I appreciate it.
Okay. We can pray for them. Matt, thank you so much for your time. And thank you for doing all that you do for the popes and educating the rest of us that have no clue about anything except thinking that Leo is, a White Sox fan and that's all we know. And he plays Wordle. I'm sure there's more to that man than those 3 facts and he's from Chicago. But thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Praying for you and your wife and your beautiful popish children. That's not a word.
It is popish. Yeah, it totally is a word. The popish.
Okay.
Do we have 30 more seconds? The popish plot was famously in, I think to try to take over the English monarchy after the English Reformation. It was called the popish plot.
Look at that.
I want to say
I'm a genius.
Yeah, totally. I want to say the guy who was supposed to execute it blabbed in some pub somewhere and blew the whole thing. Like it had a chance of succeeding.
There's
and
always
would
that
have,
guy.
But the guy just was running his mouth.
That
And
guy.
so I think I don't know. Yeah, but the Popish plot. Yeah,
Popish
it's a real
plot.
word.
Well, good. Then your Popish children. We love them and we pray for them. No, thank you so much, Matt. And I will see you on the interwebs, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Liv. It was a pleasure.